Hello, welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. Okay, so this is Mother Nature Part 9, and what I'm going to be talking about, at the heart of all gardening, is getting the ground right and getting all the nutrition and everything into the ground that is needed to grow your vegetables and your fruit. And if you get this right, you will have fantastic yields, and you'll have a really sort of healthy, disease-free garden full of crops. And really, with all sorts of gardening, it's all about talking about from the ground up. You get the ground right first. I've said this a number of times. You get the ground right first, then everything else will fall into place. And the best way that you can cheaply and effectively improve the quality of your ground is by composting. So this Mother Nature Part 9 and Part 10 will all be about composting. There are various ways of composting, and it's all down to basically what you're doing is you're taking organic matter and you're using bacteria, you're using microorganisms, you're using worms to break down this matter and to turn the the vegetable matter or sort of whatever else into the minerals and the nutritions that you need to put into the ground. And over a few months you can generate really good quality compost that you can dig back into your ground. And this is better than any fertiliser that you can buy in the shops, because you know that it's going to be organic, you know what you're putting in is organic, and you know it'll be all the better for you. But at the end of the day, it's the same as everything else. What you put in is what you get out. You always need to make sure that what you put, that you take away from the ground in the form of your vegetables and your fruits, etc., you need to put at least that much nutrition back into the ground. If you don't, basically the ground will become barren, and you won't get very good yields from your crops. So making compost, there's a number of different ways of doing this, and it's not just as simple as just piling stuff up and waiting for it to rot. What you want to do with compost is you want to start. There are a number of ways of making compost. It's probably better I explain this first. And the ways that you can make compost are slow composting, which I don't prefer to do because environmentally it's bad. Slow composting is where you get very woody tree cuttings, bark, wood chippings, sort of hard prunings, and you sort of chop them up and then you sort of pile them up and leave them for a year or two to rot down. This is not good for the environment. You are much better off to burn these things, but I'll come on to this in the next part, in Part 10 of Mother Nature. The next type is normal garden composting, where you're using microorganisms, bacteria and fungi to break down the matter in a couple of months, so you can put that back into the ground. That's what we all understand as normal sort of compost heaps. The next way is worm composting, where you're actually introducing worms. There's a number of different worms you can use to go in there, and they'll eat through all of the compost and create worm drills, which are then obviously all the nutrition that you need to put back into the ground. There's also leaf mould, and that is exactly what it says on the tin. It's leaves and mould. This is not involving bacteria or microorganisms at all. It's all about putting leaves into a bag, and then fungus then breaks down the leaves into a very fibrous compost that you can use not only for potting up but also putting on the ground as a fertiliser and to improve the soil. And you can also use it as a mulch as well. And the fifth type I want to talk about over the next couple of sections of Mother Nature is something called stewing, and this is where you make like a tea out of leaves. You can use things like comfrey or nettles and stuff to create a liquid fertiliser that you can then put on your tomatoes or whatever other plant you want to put the nutrition on. So those are the 5 main composting methods. So you've got long-term slow composting, normal composting like a garden compost. You've got wormeries or worm composting. You've also got leaf mould, and you've also got stewing. So those are the 5 I'm going to be mainly talking about. So I'm going to start with talking about the normal garden composting, which is where you're going to turn organic matter into usable compost within 2 to 4 months. And if you do it properly, the better you do it, the quicker it actually makes the compost. You can get it back into the ground where all the nutrition's nice and fresh. So you need to start in the spring, early spring, as soon as you get some some stuff off the garden, and you want to mix. There's green matter and there's brown matter. Now green matter, you're talking about obviously grass cuttings, soft prunings, fruit, veg, old cut flowers, tea bags and coffee. Those are the kinds of things I'm talking about, green matter. They're typically high in nitrogen, and they're quite soft and they rot down quite quickly. There's also brown matter, and brown matter you're talking about straw, cardboard, newspaper, normal paper, cardboard, leaves, this kind of stuff. And also you can kind of put eggshells in there as well, but that's not really carbon, that's more calcium. But that's kind of classed as brown matter. And when you're making your compost, what you want to do is mix these two together, and the emphasis on the word mix. Don't layer a compost. What you need to do is you need the green matter in there to feed the nitrogen for the bacteria to breed and grow. You also need the brown matter, which is the carbon heavy waste that you're recycling, and this is kind of the building block which will all sort of break down. So you need the nitrogen, you need the oxygen, and you need the carbon in there for the bacteria, the fungi and the microorganisms to breed and grow and rot it all down for you, so you can create a nice compost. You'll know exactly when you've got it right, because if you put your hand into the compost, it'll be warm. If it's warm, you know it's working. But I'll come on to this in a little bit. What you need to do is mix them, and it depends really. Really, you want to sort of either a 50-50 mix, so you've got the same as green and as brown, or you want to have slightly less green and more brown. But most certainly you don't want to dominate the pile with all brown or all green. If you do that, it just won't rot down properly, and it won't compost properly, because you need both in there for it to work. So as soon as you've got your pile, you can, and ideally the size of it needs to be at least a metre squared, cubed, so a metre high, metre deep, metre long, or at least that's where it needs to be when it's when it's properly full. So the second step is, if the material is dry, the other thing that you need in there is moisture. You need to get the moisture in there so the bacteria can start to grow and sort of multiply. So you need to have it moist. You don't want it wet, you want it moist. And then as soon as you've done that, you just keep adding to the pile, and that'll start to rot down, and the heat will generate in there, will start to break down all of the matter, and the bacteria and that obviously will break it down. Once the pile starts to go cool, so if you put your hand in there, you're starting to feel it to go cool, then the bacteria is starting to sort of die off. There's not so much activity. At this time, what you need to do is get your fork in there and give it a good mix up, mix it all up. And what you might find is you need to add stuff in there as well. Typically, you need to add nitrogen, because nitrogen is the thing that's the food basically for the bacteria. So you need food for the bacteria, which is nitrogen. You also need air for it to breathe, obviously, because it's a living organism. So what you need to do is, whilst you're digging it up, you're not only mixing it all up and get it all properly mixed up, but you're also adding air into there as well, so it can breathe properly. As soon as you've done that, the compost will sort of break down over sort of 2 to 4 months, and you'll see that the level's going down. You know it's breaking down, and you'll end up with the volume of it will probably about 50% of what you started with. So if you've got a metre by metre by metre, that'll end up as sort of half a metre high, if you like, because it'll all break down and drop down. That's the kind of volume that you're looking at to sort of end up with. And increasing the composting by adding things in there, you can actually increase the rate of which the composting process works. You can buy stuff on the you can buy stuff like Garotta, and there's other stuff like that you can buy, and this is basically just nitrogen rich mineral that you put in there, and that adds to the feeds the bacteria to grow it down. Don't bother going out and spending your money. Go to a coffee shop, as I've said before. Get yourself some coffee granules, which is just this stuff, and these are the coffee grounds that are. This has come from Costa Coffee, but you know, any coffee shop, and they'll be able to provide you with the. This is just the coffee. You know, after they've made coffee with it, and then they'll happily give you this, because obviously they're making loads of it. It might be an idea just to phone them up to let you know that you're going. But you know, sort of phone them the day before and say I'm coming to get some. If they don't do that normally, a lot of them now actually put it out for people to take with them. But this is absolutely teeming rich with nitrogen. It's exactly what you need. So when you're building your compost, chuck loads of that in as well, and you know, get it all in there, and that's the nitrogen which will feed the bacteria, which will feed the whole mechanism of the composting down. If you can't get your hands on coffee, I'll be surprised, because if you go to any coffee shop, they'll give you this. If you can't do that, make sure you've got loads of grass in there. You don't want to put too much so it gets wet, because grass can tend to get a bit wet and claggy, and obviously you don't want the compost to be too wet, so don't try to put too much grass in there. Really, you want no more than 50% grass, ideally less than that, to be honest with you, because it's quite fine, it gets quite wet, and it'll suffocate. The air can't get in there for the bacteria to breathe, so don't put too much grass in. That's why you need the brown stuff in there to keep it all, mix it up with the brown stuff, so you've got lots of air pockets in there for the bacteria to grow in. But coffee is ideal. If you're doing a compost, get yourself some of this. I've got a big sack of it here, and as you're putting stuff in, just put a handful of that in as well with it, and just give it a good mix up, and that's lots of nitrogen for the bacteria to grow in. Now, good things to put in, as I've already said: grass cuttings, soft prunings, fruit, vegetables, matter, any cuttings from the peelings and stuff from your kitchen, old cut flowers, tea bags, and obviously coffee grounds, as I've said. Brown stuff, that's all the green stuff. Brown matter, you're talking about straw, cardboard, newspaper, normal paper, leaves. Don't put too many leaves in, I'll come on to that later. Eggshells and stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff you want in there, and break it up. The things you don't want to put in a compost: any diseased plants, put them in the bin. You don't want to introduce the disease back into your garden, so don't put it in your compost heap, because, use common sense, chuck that in your recycling bin and get rid of it. Don't put any meat and fish in there, obviously. Apart from the fact you don't really want that kind of stuff in there, you're going to be attracting vermin into your garden, so chuck that in the bin. Don't put that in your compost. Any cooked food, again, will compost, but you're attracting vermin into your compost. Obviously, your compost is going to be a nice warm place. Vermin's going to love to live in there, and if you're putting food in there with them as well, you can guarantee it'll be a rat run. So don't put any cooked food in there. Don't put coal ash in there, because that will disturb the sulphur will stop the bacteria from growing. Don't put weeds in there. If you've got weeds with seeds on, you're going to be introducing the weeds back into the ground. Obviously, perennial weeds, you don't want the roots anyway. Annual weeds, you don't want to put the seeds back into the ground, so don't put them into your compost. Put them in the bin, get rid of them. Other things not to put in there: too many leaves, as I've already said. I'll come on to this in a bit more detail later. Don't put manure into the compost. Manure and compost are two separate things, both good for the ground. Put manure in a pile if it's too fresh, and then when that's rotted down a bit, put that into the garden. Don't put the manure into the compost heap, because you will raise the acidity of the compost heap, and you will kill the bacteria. You will stop the composting process dead. Don't put anything that's acidic into the compost, which leads on to the next thing. As I've already said, don't put anything like lemons, oranges, anything that's acidic like limes, kiwi fruits. Don't put anything like that into the into your compost heap. You can put other fruits, apples, things like that, as long as there's not too many and it's all mixed up, that'll be fine. But don't put strongly acidic fruits into the compost, because again, you'll kill the bacteria. Other things that you don't want to put in there: potatoes, tops, tomatoes, strawberries, roots from brassicas, because they could possibly be diseased. Don't put them into the compost heap. Things like potato tops, put them in the bin. Tomato tops, put them in the bin. Strawberries, as I've said, burn them or put them into the bin. Don't recycle them. And most certainly brassica roots, get rid of them, put them in the bin, take them down the tip. You don't want them on you know, being put back into the ground. So that's the that's the main things that you know to think about. But apart from that, anything else, get it in there, you know, sort of dig it all up, and you know, make sure you keep turning it, and then it'll rot down really well. Some problems that you might get: when a compost is working well, it'll smell sweet. It won't, you know, it'll smell earthy, it'll smell sweet, it'll smell nice. If it starts to go slimy, and the you know, and the compost is sort of basically, you've got too much green matter in. This is the problem when you put too much grass in and stuff like that. What you need to do is get more of the brown stuff in there. Dig in straw, dig in paper, cardboard, newspaper, leaves, and a few leaves, that kind of thing. That'll break it back up. The other thing is if it's slimy like that as well, what you might need to do is kick-start the bacteria again, because you've suffocated it with the you know, the dampness of the grass. Put some more nitrogen in, get some more coffee in there, and give the bacteria another good kick-start, and then it'll all start again. The heat will then drive the water off, and then it'll all start to work again. And when you're finished, what you should end up with is a nice dark brown, crumbly compost, which, you know, if you smell it, it smells nice. If it doesn't smell nice, you've got something wrong, and I'll come on to that next. So composting relies on a number of bacteria and things like that, and sort of aerobic bacteria. So you can always tell when you see aerobic bacteria, because they're the little bacteria that are always doing. I'm joking. Bacteria, microorganisms, and microfungi will all be in there, breaking down the matter and breaking it into what you need. And these need air, these need nitrogen, and they need moisture, and they need a reasonably neutral pH. So as I've already explained, if you haven't got these things right, it won't compost properly. So just keep your eye on those. Make sure you've got plenty of air. Keep turning your compost over. Plenty of nitrogen. Get loads of coffee in there, grass, stuff like that. Moisture. If it is dry, put a little bit on. Not too much. You don't want to drench it. Just put a bit of moisture on there. What you can do is cover it with some plastic or cardboard or old carpet if you really need to, and that'll keep the moisture and the heat in there. So that you know, that's another good method of doing it. And obviously watch your pH. If you're putting stuff in there that's too acidic or too lime, you'll disturb the pH and you'll stop the bacteria from working. So a few tips then: to add air, obviously add straw, turn the heap. Don't layer the grass or the soil in there. Always make sure it's all nicely mixed up. Don't let it get too wet, and do not compost things like you know, sort of too much green matter in one go. That's the best thing I can tell you. Now, if you start to get this smell of sulphur, which smells like kind of eggy sort of smell, that's when you haven't got enough air in there. That's when it's telling you need to get your fork in there and break it up. If your compost starts to smell of kind of ammonia, and ammonia's a nitrogen and hydrogen mixed together. It's hard to explain ammonia, but the what smells of ammonia? Pee smells a bit like ammonia, you know, like sort of public toilets, that kind of smell. If that's, excuse me for using that, what's saying, but if that's the case, you've got too much nitrogen in there, which is unusual. But if you've got too much nitrogen, again, what you need to do, sorry, not enough nitrogen, sorry, that again, you need to add coffee, you need to add grass, you need to add green matter, again, no seeds. And then if you don't have enough moisture in there, what you'll find is the composting will start to stop. Basically, the bacteria will start to die because there's no moisture there for it to. So obviously, all you need to do then is, as I say, cover it with plastic, put a bit of moisture in there, cover it with plastic, cardboard, or a bit of corrugated iron or something like that to stop it drying out, keep the moisture in there, and then obviously if it rains, then it'll run off as well, and so you won't get too much. So, and as I say, the best size for a compost is a metre cubed. If it's slightly bigger, all the better. What you can do, ideally, is make a wooden box with a wooden base so the air can get underneath as well. That's the best way of doing it. Add some old pallets or something like that. I tend to use the black plastic bins because it's more contained and easier to control, because the big ones are, the big sort of boxes tend to be a bit more permanent. I have had them in the past, but I find the black bins are more sort of useful. But that's all about composting. Now, in the next section, what I'm going to be talking about is slow composting, worm composting, wormeries, which are different, and also sort of stewing plants. So that will be in the next section, Mother Nature Part 10. So, I hope this episode has been of some use to you. Sorry we've not been able really to get onto the allotment this week and do some more practical things, but because the ground's so wet, it's just impossible to get on there at the moment. I have had a look today, and it's a no-go at the minute. So hopefully in the week I'll be able to get on the garden and do some work, and I'll be able to post that next weekend. But thank you for watching Jim's Allotment Garden. Please do put any comments that you've got below. I appreciate any comments, and I'll always answer any questions that you've got. And thanks for watching Jim's Allotment. See you on the next episode.